Welcome back to Vintage HLC Show and Tell. Today we're looking at American Beauty. This is a fancy embossed shape that was introduced around 1898 and discontinued by 1910. It was essentially replaced by the Niagara shape, which is very plain in comparison to this very ornate fancy shape. So its high point was in 1903 when it had over 230 treatments, but as the years went on it just got fewer and fewer until finally it was discontinued. So we'll start by looking at the back stamps, and there are three of them. The first one is the signature mark with American Beauty on top. The second one is a circle mark with the eagle and lion. Let's see. Trying to pick out a good one. Here we go. So it has Homer Laughlin, semi-vitreous china, and then American Beauty underneath. And the last one is the fleur-de-lis marking. We see it here. Fleur-de-lis with Homer Laughlin, then American Beauty written out in cursive on the bottom. You're not going to find any date codes on American Beauty. Now this was a very extensive line. We had multiple sizes of jugs and bakers and nappies and platters. And here you see the basic assortment. One thing I want to mention involves the spoon holder. And you see it up top here with the little handles that resemble what you would see on the covered dishes. That one was redesigned. That's the first version. The second version has C handles, similar to what you would find on the sugar and creamer. There's one other redesign that happens with American Beauty. That involves the sauce boat. And I don't know if you're going to be able to tell, but the rim has this severe indentation going on along the edge. And the restyled version is simplified. This also happens at the body. You can see this rather severe indentation, then it comes around to this side, and then it repeats on the back side. Again, it's simplified and filled in. Those are the only two variations I really know of that are significant when it comes to American Beauty. We have a fruit bowl here. We're not going to look at that one today. We're going to look at that in the next video because I'm going to talk some more about art china next time, and I'll bring those out. So let's look at some patterns. We'll start with this one. This is 331. This is a large jug. This is probably a 12. It's a pretty good size. And it's called Oak Leaves. And it's an underglazed print with filled-in details and gold tracings. This is probably the most common pattern you'll find on American Beauty. We've got several pieces out. Here's the covered casserole. There's the covered butter. You see pretty good gold tracings on that one. The regular sugar, the individual sugar, and then there's a creamer. Again, this is pattern 331 Oak Leaves. And since we have this creamer, we'll look at these other jugs. There's a 24s jug with campion. We've seen this print before. Here's one with roses and gold stamps. We'll talk about that one later. This one has a blue underglazed rose print. And this is pattern 601, as it's used on American Beauty. Now, if you were to go backwards and pick this up with Golden Gate, then it would be pattern 601. As you go forward with shapes, if you were to use this on Colonial, then it's 4601, Seneca's 6601, King Charles is 8601, and Angelus is 9601. But here it starts on American Beauty with 601. Here's our campion print again. Red underglazed print with gold line. This is 714. We also have this without gold trim on the butter pats, and it is 704. And these butter pats happen to be marked. This is a problem with butter pats a lot of times. If you were to go to an antique shop and they've got stacks and stacks of butter pats, you either have to know the treatments or the embossing, because most of the time they're going to be unmarked. But if you're lucky, they will be marked, in this case with a circle mark. This is our blackberry underglazed print with filled-in details. We saw this on Golden Gate. And here it is again on an American Beauty sauce boat. Blackberry and fern. Covered sauce dish with ladle with decals and gold stamps. We talked about the ladle, I think, in the King Charles video, where this ladle could be used with multiple shapes. It's just the same piece. Sometimes they're blank, sometimes they're decorated. We'll come back to that in a minute. We'll talk about that last. This one is pattern number 635. It should be on the lid. It is. 635. That is Phlox underglaze print in green with filled-in details of old rose and yellow. And it should have gold trim, though a lot of it has faded away. We've seen this one before when I was talking about the treatment numbers for the fancy embossed shapes. This is picked up from Hudson. Should be H42. Really unusual to see American Beauty pick up a Hudson treatment. That doesn't happen very often. Here we have a decal treatment with gold tracings. This is treatment number 932. There's the stamp on the lid. It's called Nadora. And you'll notice most of these treatments are underglaze prints, or the gold tracings in the case of 361. So there aren't that many decal treatments that appear on American Beauty. It's the same is true with Golden Gate, and even Colonial to a certain extent. But most of your treatments are going to be these underglaze prints. And this is 361 with the gold tracings. No other decoration, no prints, no decals. We see the creamer. Let's see. This one with an underglaze blueprint. We saw this on a jug in Golden Gate. And here it is again in green. And then we have that special electric blue color. We'll compare the two. And this is your pickle dish. We saw these when we did a special video on pickles and olives. Here's the olive dish, a smaller version. And then there's the celery tray with poppies and gold stamps. I want to come back to the jugs for a moment because when we were looking at the creamer, the way to tell a small size jug from a creamer is you look at the bottom. A creamer is going to have a round base, whereas the jug should have an oval. And that's how you tell the difference. There's your back stamp, your circle mark, and American Beauty. Bone dish with treatment number 361 or gold tracings. Sort of see the embossing on this one. 8-inch platter with, I think that's the Milan Arch Bridge, Waterloo, Iowa. So a little souvenir piece. That's an underglaze print. And I think we're going to go back to this cake plate for a moment so that you can see the embossing detail. This is probably the sharpest piece I've got. So you see that laurel embossing, and then you see the scallop going on. You also see that laurel embossing on the handles. So let's see. There's a good example here. Okay, so now I want to come back to these two. This covered dish and this creamer. Because I mentioned there were over 230 treatments on American Beauty, but then you have to allow for ones like these. These are extras. And they would have had treatment numbers as well, probably numbering either in the 1000s or the 3000s. And these are special treatments that were intended for wares of lower quality, like thirds or even worse. So if we look at this creamer, we have rose decals in this gold stamp border, some gold trim as well. I don't know if it's going to show up, but we've got all these little pops on the inside. Some crazing as well, but those pops they're all in the inside. And if we look at this covered dish, in the bottom we have even more. Let me put this aside. So there's no way that either one of these would have been approved to go into a dinnerware set to be sold in retail. So what they would do with pieces like these, rather than just throw them out, nothing was wasted. So they just put these scrap prints on there and then some gold stamps and then sell them at a low price to whomever would buy them. Sometimes there would be little stores who would buy barrels of less than second quality ware just to resell, and these would have been part of it. So something like this, as soon as you see them on something like American Beauty or Colonial, where you see these oddball decals with gold stamps, then you pretty much know, well, that's going to be low quality ware, and there should be something wrong with it. Again, let's see if you can see the little pops on the inside of that creamer. So it's to be expected, is the point. You know, if you find this and you look at this and you go, oh, that should have been thrown out. Well, no, they just decorated it and sold it at a lower price. So I think that's going to be it for American Beauty. It's a really fun shape, very ornate. We're going to look at this again when I talk about Republic because there's a lot of similarities. I find it odd that they discontinued this around 1910 and then 6 years later they introduced Republic, which is another fancy embossed shape, and there's a lot of similarities between the two. So next time we're going to look at some art china, and we'll bring out that American Beauty fruit bowl.